The office lobby resembled a giant glass box bathed in light where early morning sunbeams slipped through crystal glass panes and refracted into long streaks across a surface, polished smooth as a motionless lake. The rhythmic tapping of leather shoes echoed like the heartbeat of a machine fueled by money and ambition. Polite laughter, the scent of expensive perfume, and the swift passage of luxury briefcases, weaved together like the overture of a performance about power. At the center of it all stood Laila Thompson, silent, clutching a brown paper bag filled with the lunch she had prepared at dawn. Her soft gray cardigan draped over her like a memory washed too many times, and her faded jeans clashed with the lighting of the place, but not with her. And then, ding, the elevator doors slid open. Victoria Sterling stepped out like a pre-programmed sequence, a white Chanel blazer, flawless heels, and eyes sharp as ice skimming over Laila with unmasked contempt. The question left her lips light as air but sharp as a razor, freezing the entire lobby mid-major. The air shifted, and in that moment, the invisible masks began to fall. "Excuse me, what exactly are you doing here?" Victoria's voice cuts through the ambient noise of the busy lobby like a blade through silk, sharp and designed to wound. "This is a corporate building, not a place for random people to wander around looking lost." Laila's eyebrows furrow slightly, the first sign of her quiet resistance. A small crack in her composure that signals something deeper stirring beneath the surface. "I just need to get to the 30th floor to see my husband." "The 30th floor?" Victoria steps forward, her heels clicking against the marble like a countdown timer, blocking Laila's path to the elevator with the confidence of someone who has never been told no. "That's executive level. I think you're very confused about where you need to be and, frankly, where you belong." Rebecca Hayes materializes beside Victoria like a shadow-seeking substance, her younger face eager to mirror her superior's contempt, with the desperate hunger of someone trying to climb a ladder by stepping on others. She adjusts her knockoff designer bag, a poor imitation of Victoria's authentic luxury that fools no one but costs her a week's salary, but her attitude matches her superior's perfectly. Her makeup is applied with the heavy hand of someone trying too hard to look sophisticated, creating a mask that can't quite hide her insecurity. "Ma'am, this building has extremely strict security protocols." Rebecca interjects, her voice dripping with false authority borrowed from proximity to power. "We simply cannot allow just anyone to claim they belong here without proper verification and documentation." Laila shifts the paper bag to her other hand, feeling the weight of the carefully prepared food inside, each sandwich cut with precision, each container of salad arranged with the care of someone who takes joy in small acts of love. Her patience begins to thin like ice under pressure. "I understand there are protocols, but I'm simply bringing lunch to my husband who works on the 30th floor. This isn't complicated, and it shouldn't require an interrogation." Victoria laughs, a sharp sound that echoes off the marble walls like glass breaking, designed to humiliate rather than express joy. "Your husband? Really? And what exactly does this mysterious husband of yours do? Janitorial services, security, perhaps maintenance?" Her voice drops to a whisper loud enough for everyone to hear. "Because I can absolutely assure you, the executives on 30 don't have wives who—" She gestures dismissively at Laila's appearance with a wave that encompasses everything from her shoes to her hair. "Dress like they shop exclusively at thrift stores and haven't looked in a mirror in weeks." The words hang in the air like poison gas, spreading through the small crowd that has begun to gather. James, the 55-year-old security guard who has worked in this building for 15 years, shifts uncomfortably near his station. His weathered face, lined with decades of seeing both the best and worst of human nature, shows the internal struggle of a man who knows more than he can say, watching an injustice unfold before his eyes like a slow-motion car crash he's powerless to prevent. "Look, I don't want any trouble here," Laila says, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her chest like mercury in a thermometer on a summer day. I just want to deliver this food and leave. It really is that simple. Rebecca steps closer, emboldened by Victoria's aggression like a pilot fish following a shark. Nothing simple when it comes to building security, ma'am. For all we know, you could be anyone. A disgruntled former employee with an agenda, someone with ulterior motives. Or worse. She crosses her arms, creating a human barrier that's more psychological than physical. We've had incidents before with people trying to gain unauthorized access to restricted areas, using exactly these kinds of sob stories. Victoria nods approvingly at her protégé's performance, like a teacher watching a promising student execute a lesson plan. Exactly right, Rebecca. And frankly, your story keeps changing with every sentence you speak. First, you're just visiting. Now you're bringing food to a husband who supposedly works here. It's suspicious behavior, and we have every right, indeed every responsibility, to be cautious and thorough. Laila's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, a micro-expression that suggests volcanic forces moving beneath a deceptively calm surface. My story hasn't changed at all. I came here to bring my husband lunch, exactly as I've stated consistently from the very beginning of this conversation. Then why can't you provide any concrete details? Victoria presses, stepping closer like a prosecutor moving in for the kill. What's his name? What department does he work in? What floor specifically? What's his job title? These should be incredibly easy questions if you're telling the truth, instead of making up stories as you go along. James takes a half step forward, his protective instincts warring with his need to keep the job that supports his wife's medical treatments and his daughter's college tuition. Ms. Sterling, maybe we could just make a quick call upstairs and verify. I don't remember asking for your opinion, James. Victoria snaps without taking her predatory eyes off Laila, her voice carrying the sharp crack of authority misused. I'm perfectly capable of handling this situation without input from security personnel who seem more interested in helping potential intruders than protecting the building they're paid to secure. Laila closes her eyes for a brief moment, and in that darkness, memories flood back like water through a broken dam. She remembers the cramped studio apartment she and David shared 15 years ago, with its broken air conditioning and thin walls that let in every sound from the street. She remembered surviving on ramen noodles and determination while he worked 18-hour days building what would become their empire. His hands, cracked and bleeding from the physical labor he did alongside the mental work of creating a vision. She remembers the nights when she worked 2 jobs, waitressing until midnight and then cleaning offices until dawn, all to support his dream, when no one else believed in his vision. When banks laughed them out of offices and investors dismissed them without a second glance. The weight of those struggles, the sacrifices they made together in 1,000 small ways, over 1,000 difficult days, makes this moment feel particularly bitter, like medicine that's supposed to heal but tastes of everything wrong with the world. I can call him if that would help resolve this situation, Laila offers, her voice carrying a subtle edge that wasn't there before, like steel wrapped in silk. He can verify everything you need to know. Victoria scoffs, the sound emerging from her throat like a bark from a well-trained attack dog. Oh, now you want to call someone. How incredibly convenient. Let me guess, this mysterious husband will vouch for you, provide all the right answers, and we're supposed to just take your word for it like we're complete fools? A small crowd begins to gather, drawn by the raised voices and obvious tension like moths to a flame. Office workers on their lunch breaks slow their pace, their conversations dying as they tune into the drama unfolding before them. Smartphones appear with the discretion of paparazzi, capturing what their owners instinctively know will be something worth sharing. Rebecca, sensing an audience, like a performer finding her spotlight, raises her voice slightly to ensure everyone can hear her performance. This is exactly why we have these security measures in place, people. Individuals think they can just walk into a corporate building and make up elaborate stories about working here, about having family connections, about belonging in spaces they clearly don't belong in. I've been working security here for 15 years, James says, his voice carefully neutral, but carrying an undertone of frustration that threatens to break through his professional demeanor. I've never seen anything quite like this before. Maybe we could— 15 years? Victoria whirls on him like a predator identifying new prey, her voice rising to a pitch that makes several people wince. And in those 15 years, how many incidents have we prevented by being vigilant? How many potential problems, how many security breaches, how many dangerous situations have we stopped at the door by refusing to bend the rules for sob stories and sad faces? She turns back to Laila, her voice rising like a tide of righteous indignation. I will not have this building's security compromised because someone wants to bend the rules for a stranger with a suspicious story. Laila watches the scene unfold with growing disbelief, observing the dynamics like an anthropologist studying a particularly toxic tribe. She sees Rebecca practically vibrating with excitement at the drama, feeding off the conflict like a vampire drawing sustenance from chaos. She sees James trying desperately to find a peaceful solution while protecting his livelihood, caught between doing what's right and keeping the job that pays for his family's needs. She sees Victoria feeding off the power dynamic like a predator, growing stronger and more confident with each moment of perceived weakness from her victim. What exactly do you think I'm going to do with a sandwich and salad? Laila asks, her tone deceptively calm, like the surface of a lake that's much deeper than it appears. Overthrow the building management with lunch meat? Stage a corporate coup with condiments? Don't be flippant with me, Victoria snaps, her face flushing with the kind of anger that comes from having one's authority questioned even mildly. Your attitude is exactly what I'd expect from someone trying to fast-talk their way past security with clever words and sarcastic comments. James, I want you to search that bag, immediately and thoroughly. Ma'am, I really don't think that's necessary under these circumstances. James begins, his voice heavy with the weight of 15 years of experience that tells him this situation is spinning out of control. I'm not asking what you think, James. Victoria cuts him off with the precision of a scalpel. I'm telling you what to do, as someone with the authority to give you direct orders. Search the bag, or I'll have to seriously question whether you're capable of performing your duties at the level this building requires. Laila clutches the paper bag tighter, feeling the containers shift inside, thinking of the time she spent at 5 a.m. preparing each element with the care of someone for whom cooking is a language of love. This is absolutely ridiculous. You have no legal right to search my personal belongings without cause. Actually, we do, Rebecca chimes in, clearly enjoying her moment in the spotlight like an understudy who's finally gotten her chance on stage. This is private property, and we have every right, indeed every responsibility, to ensure the safety and security of everyone in this building. We don't know what you might be concealing in there. Victoria's eyes glitter with something approaching triumph as she senses Laila's growing frustration, like a predator detecting the fear of wounded prey. Your refusal to cooperate only confirms my suspicions about your real intentions here. What exactly are you hiding in that bag that you don't want us to see? What are you so afraid of us discovering? I'm not hiding anything, Laila says, her voice tight with controlled anger that threatens to break free like water behind a cracking dam. But I shouldn't have to submit to an illegal search just because you've decided I don't belong here based purely on my appearance and your personal prejudices. Illegal search, Rebecca laughs, the sound sharp and unpleasant like fingernails on a chalkboard. This isn't a courtroom, lady. This isn't CSI or Law and Order. This is a private building with private security, and we're well within our rights to protect our tenants and employees from potential threats, whatever form they might take. The crowd around them grows larger, phones now openly recording the confrontation like journalists documenting a disaster. Laila notices the cameras and feels a flush of embarrassment spread across her face like spilled wine, but also something else, something harder and more determined crystallizing in her chest. Victoria senses the shift in audience and plays to them like a politician at a rally, her voice projecting to reach the back rows of her impromptu theater. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why we have strict security protocols in place. This woman has entered our building under what appear to be false pretenses, refuses to provide proper identification or verification of her claims, and is now becoming increasingly hostile and uncooperative when asked to comply with basic, reasonable security measures. "I haven't become hostile," Laila says, her voice carrying a warning that Victoria is too drunk on power and attention to recognize. "I've simply asked to be treated with basic human dignity and respect, which shouldn't be too much to ask for in a civilized society." Dignity? Victoria's voice rises to near theatrical levels, her performance growing more dramatic with each word. "You want dignity? Then act like someone who deserves it. Provide proper identification. Explain your real purpose here instead of these vague stories, and maybe we can have a civilized conversation like reasonable adults." James steps forward again, his face flushed with embarrassment and anger that's been building for 15 minutes. "Mrs. Sterling, I really think we need to step back and—" "James, if you speak out of turn one more time, if you continue to undermine my authority in front of witnesses, I'll have you written up for insubordination, and we'll see how that affects your employment status." Victoria threatens, her voice carrying the cold precision of someone who enjoys having power over others. This woman could be anyone. A thief, a corporate spy, someone planning God knows what kind of disruption or violence. And you want to just let her waltz upstairs because she has a convenient sob story about a husband? Laila's composure finally cracks slightly, like ice beginning to give way under pressure. A sob story? Bringing lunch to my husband is a sob story? Wanting to surprise him with a meal I made with my own hands is some kind of elaborate deception? "Prove it," Victoria demands, stepping so close that Laila can smell her expensive perfume, a scent that probably costs more than most people spend on groceries in a month. "Show me identification. Give me a name and department. Provide one single piece of concrete evidence that you belong here, or I'm calling the police right now and having you arrested for trespassing." Rebecca nods eagerly, like a bobblehead doll powered by spite. "That's exactly right. Put up or shut up. Either prove you have legitimate business here, or admit you're lying and leave voluntarily before this gets worse for you." Laila looks around at the faces surrounding her. Some sympathetic, some curious, some openly hostile, all of them watching her humiliation unfold like it's entertainment designed for their amusement. She sees her reflection in the polished marble floor, sees how she must look to these people in her simple clothes, with her homemade lunch, and something inside her hardens like steel forged in fire. "Fine," Laila says quietly, her voice carrying an undertone that suggests dangerous currents moving beneath still water. "You want to see what's in the bag. I'll show you exactly what's inside." She begins to open the paper bag with deliberate slowness, but Victoria suddenly lunges forward with the reflexes of someone accustomed to taking what she wants. "I'll handle this personally. We don't know what might be concealed in there. What kind of threats might be hidden among innocent-looking items." "Don't touch that!" Laila tries to hold on to the bag, but Victoria pulls harder with surprising strength. The bag tears down the middle with a sound like fabric ripping, sending the carefully prepared sandwiches and salad containers crashing to the marble floor. The sound echoes through the lobby like a gunshot, and for a moment, everyone freezes, as if the world has stopped spinning. For a moment that stretches like taffy, everyone stares at the scattered food on the pristine floor. Laila's homemade lunch, prepared with love at 5 in the morning when the world was still dark and quiet, lies ruined among the marble tiles like casualties of war. Turkey and avocado sandwiches cut into perfect triangles, mixed green salad with homemade vinaigrette, cut fruit arranged in small containers with the precision of someone who finds joy in making beautiful things. The sight hits her like a physical blow, not because of the food itself, but because of what it represents. the care and love now literally trampled underfoot by strangers who couldn't see past their own prejudices. Victoria stands over the mess with the satisfaction of a general surveying a conquered battlefield. Well, well. Food service. I should have known from the beginning. You're running some kind of unlicensed catering operation, aren't you? Trying to sell homemade food to office workers who don't know any better? What? Laila stares at her in disbelief, her mind struggling to process the accusation. This is lunch for my husband. This is a meal I made with my own hands for someone I love. Right, Rebecca says, pulling out her phone to record with the enthusiasm of someone who thinks they're documenting a major crime. And I suppose you just happened to make enough food for an army? This is clearly a commercial business operation, which violates multiple health codes and building regulations. Victoria's voice grows louder, ensuring everyone in the expanding crowd can hear her proclamation. This is exactly what I suspected from the moment I laid eyes on her. An unlicensed food vendor trying to conduct illegal business in our building, putting everyone at risk with unregulated, potentially dangerous food products. James? I want this documented as a serious security incident. Laila looks at the food scattered across the floor, some of it now being stepped on by curious onlookers who press closer to get a better view of the spectacle, and feels something break inside her chest, like a dam giving way. You destroyed my husband's lunch. You destroyed something I made with love. I exposed your illegal operation, Victoria corrects with the righteousness of someone who believes their own lies. And now I'm going to make sure everyone knows about it, so you can't victimize anyone else. She raises her voice to address the crowd like a prosecutor making closing arguments. This woman tried to bring unlicensed, potentially unsafe food into our building to sell to unsuspecting workers who trust us to maintain proper security. That's not true, Laila says, but her voice is lost in the murmur of the growing crowd, drowned out by the speculation and judgment of strangers. Rebecca, emboldened by the attention like an actor who's found her spotlight, takes it further. We should check if she has any accomplices waiting outside. This could be part of a larger operation, some kind of organized scheme to infiltrate corporate buildings. Victoria nods approvingly, like a teacher praising a particularly apt student. Excellent thinking, Rebecca. James, I want security footage reviewed for the past hour. Check if she met with anyone or handed anything off before coming inside. Look for suspicious behavior, unusual patterns, anything that doesn't fit normal foot traffic. Sterling, this really isn't necessary under these circumstances. James tries one more time, his voice heavy with the frustration of a man watching injustice unfold and being powerless to stop it. It's completely necessary, Victoria snaps, her voice reaching a pitch that makes several people step back. We have protocols for a reason, and this woman has violated every single one of them. She lied about her purpose here, refused to cooperate with reasonable security measures, and was caught red-handed with evidence of illegal, commercial activity. Laila feels the walls closing in around her like the trash compactor scene from Star Wars. The crowd has grown to nearly 30 people, all watching her humiliation unfold like entertainment, like a reality show designed for their amusement. Phones are recording from multiple angles, capturing her worst moment for posterity, for social media, for the judgment of strangers who will never know the whole story. I want to call my husband, Laila says, her voice barely above a whisper, the words carrying the desperation of someone drowning and reaching for a life preserver. Your accomplice, you mean? Victoria's voice drips with false concern, like honey poured over poison. I don't think so. James, call the police immediately. This woman is trespassing, conducting illegal business, and now attempting to contact unknown associates who might be part of this scheme. Please, Laila says, and the word comes out more broken than she intended, cracking like ice under pressure. Just let me call him. He can explain everything. Victoria grabs her half-empty Coke from a nearby bench, the condensation on the plastic cup making it slippery in her perfectly manicured hands. Without warning, without hesitation, she dumps the entire contents over the scattered food like a priest performing some twisted baptism. The dark liquid spreads across the marble, mixing with the carefully prepared meal in a mess of waste and humiliation that seems to summarize everything wrong with the world in one horrible moment. Victoria announces with the satisfaction of someone who has just solved a major problem. Health hazard eliminated. Now we don't have to worry about anyone getting sick from unregulated, potentially contaminated food products. The crowd gasps, some in shock at the cruelty, others in approval of the decisive action. Laila stares at the destruction, at the coke-soaked remains of her morning's work, at the physical manifestation of her love for her husband, now reduced to garbage on an expensive floor, and feels something fundamental shift inside her soul, like tectonic plates moving. Why? Laila asks, her voice barely audible above the murmur of the crowd. Why would you do something so unnecessarily cruel? Because I protect this building and everyone in it, Victoria declares, her voice carrying the fervor of a crusader who believes in her own righteousness. And I won't let some con artist put people at risk with questionable food and suspicious behavior. Rebecca holds up her phone, still recording, her face flushed with excitement. This is going straight to social media. People need to know about scammers like this trying to take advantage of honest office workers. Laila looks up at them, water gathering in her eyes, but not from sadness. From rage. Pure, crystalline rage that she's been suppressing for the past 20 minutes. Anger that burns like a forge and threatens to consume everything in its path. Post it, Laila says quietly, her voice carrying an undertone that should have been a warning. Please, post all of it. Make sure everyone sees exactly what happened here today. Victoria misinterprets the tone completely, hearing surrender where there's actually preparation for war. Oh, now you're getting smart? Too late for that strategy. The damage is done, literally and figuratively. James, Victoria continues, riding high on her perceived victory, I want this woman escorted out immediately and I want her banned from the building permanently. If she comes back, if she shows her face here again, we call the police without any discussion or hesitation. James looks at Laila, then at Victoria, his internal conflict visible on his weathered face like a map of moral geography. Ms. Sterling, I really think we should... Think what? That we should ignore basic security protocols? That we should let people lie their way into restricted areas? That we should allow unlicensed food vendors to operate in our lobby like this is some kind of street market? Victoria's voice reaches a crescendo that echoes off the marble walls. I'm calling the police myself right now. She pulls out her phone with theatrical flourish, like a magician about to perform her greatest trick. This has gone far enough. This woman is clearly disturbed, possibly dangerous, and definitely criminal. Someone needs to take responsibility for protecting innocent people. Wait! Comes a voice from the back of the crowd, cutting through the chaos like a sword through silk. The crowd parts like the Red Sea as Michael Chen strides through the lobby with the kind of presence that doesn't need to announce itself. Impeccably dressed in a charcoal Armani suit that fits him like it was painted on his body, his presence dying immediate attention, conversations dying mid-sentence, as people recognize the authority radiating from his bearing, like heat from the sun. He moves with the confidence of someone who has never questioned his right to be anywhere he chooses to be. Victoria's face lights up with relief and excitement, like a child seeing a parent arrive to validate their good behavior. Mr. Chen, perfect timing, sir. I've successfully apprehended someone attempting to conduct illegal business in the building. She was trying to sell unlicensed food to our tenants and became increasingly hostile and uncooperative when confronted with proper security procedures. Michael doesn't respond to Victoria immediately, a choice that should have been her first warning. Instead, he walks directly to Laila, who stands amid the wreckage of her destroyed lunch, Coke still dripping from the scattered containers, like blood from a wound. "Ma'am, are you injured?" Michael asks, his voice gentle but carrying unmistakable authority, the kind of power that doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. Laila looks up at him, recognizing him from company functions and board meetings, but saying nothing. Her silence speaks volumes to anyone who knows how to listen. Victoria, interpreting Michael's attention as professional interest in the incident rather than concern for the victim, continues her narrative with growing confidence. "Sir, this woman claimed to be visiting a husband on the 30th floor, but couldn't provide any verification whatsoever. When we requested to search her bag for standard security purposes, she became defensive and completely uncooperative." Michael kneels beside the scattered food, examining the mess with the attention of a detective studying a crime scene. "And this happened how, exactly?" "She was concealing food items, clearly intending to sell them to building occupants." Rebecca jumps in, eager to support her superior and cement her role in what she still believes is a victory. "When we tried to investigate the contents of her bag, she became aggressive and uncooperative, so we had to take control of the situation. For everyone's safety." Michael stands slowly, his expression unreadable as a statue. "I see. And you determined she was selling food because why else would someone bring this much food into an office building?" Victoria gestures at the scattered mess with the confidence of someone who believes her logic is unassailable. "It's obvious, commercial activity. She was clearly running some kind of unlicensed catering operation. To you, it's obvious," Michael repeats, his voice carrying no inflection whatsoever. "James, what's your assessment of the situation?" James shifts uncomfortably, aware that his answer could cost him his job regardless of what he says, but also aware that sometimes a man has to choose between his paycheck and his conscience. "Sir, the lady seemed peaceful, quiet. She just wanted to go upstairs to see someone." Victoria interrupts with the urgency of someone who feels control slipping away. "James has been compromised throughout this entire incident. I suspect he might be involved with this woman somehow, possibly financially. His behavior has been completely unprofessional and contrary to proper security protocols." Michael raises a hand for silence, a gesture so subtle yet so commanding that the entire lobby falls quiet, as if he's conducting an orchestra. "Miss Sterling, do you know who this woman is?" "A con artist," Victoria says with absolute confidence, like someone stating that water is wet. "Probably with a criminal record. That's why she couldn't provide proper identification when requested." Michael's expression doesn't change, but something dangerous flickers in his eyes, like lightning in a dark sky. "This is Laila Thompson." "Hmm?" Victoria blinks, the name registering slowly like a computer processing information. "Thompson?" "Laila Thompson," Michael repeats with perfect clarity, ensuring everyone in the crowd can hear. "Wife of David Thompson." And the lobby falls completely silent. Even the background noise of traffic from outside seems to fade away, as if the world itself is holding its breath. "David Thompson," Michael continues, watching Victoria's face with the intensity of a scientist observing a chemical reaction. "Our chief executive officer, the man who built this company from nothing, the man who employs every single person in this building." The color drains from Victoria's face so quickly that she appears to be transforming into marble herself, becoming part of the building's architecture. Rebecca's mouth opens and closes silently, like a fish gasping for air in an empty tank. That's impossible," Victoria whispers, her voice barely audible. "She's dressed like, she looks like, this can't be real." "Like what?" Laila speaks for the first time since Michael arrived, her voice carrying a new quality, something sharp and precisely controlled, like a scalpel in the hands of a master surgeon. "Like a normal person? Like someone who doesn't need to wear her wealth like armor?" Michael addresses the crowd without taking his eyes off Victoria, his voice carrying to every corner of the lobby. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed the systematic humiliation of the First Lady of this corporation, the woman whose husband built this company from nothing in a garage 20 years ago. The woman who worked 2 jobs to support his dream while he developed the vision that employs every single person in this building. Rebecca staggers backward, her phone still in her hand, still recording her own destruction. No, this can't be happening. This has to be some kind of mistake. But it is happening, Laila says, stepping forward through the scattered remains of her lunch, the food crunching under her simple flats like autumn leaves. And you recorded all of it. Every word, every action, every moment of cruelty. Victoria tries to speak, but only manages a choking sound, like someone drowning in their own disbelief. Michael continues his revelation with the precision of a prosecutor laying out evidence. For those who don't know, Laila Thompson holds degrees in business administration and finance from Harvard Business School. She sits on the boards of 3 charitable foundations and personally oversees our company's community outreach programs that have donated over $10 million to local charities. She is also, incidentally, one of the kindest, most humble people you will ever have the privilege to meet. Laila walks to where Victoria stands, frozen like a statue in a museum of her own making. You assumed I was worthless because of how I dress. You destroyed my property because you thought I was powerless. You humiliated me in front of dozens of people because you believed there would be no consequences for your cruelty. Mrs. Thompson, Victoria's voice cracks like ice breaking. I couldn't have known. You what? Laila's voice is deadly quiet, like the silence before thunder. You didn't know? That's your defense? You made assumptions based entirely on my appearance and treated me like garbage because you thought you could get away with it? Michael adds, his voice carrying the weight of final judgment. Miss Sterling, in your eagerness to demonstrate authority you don't actually possess, you have provided us with a perfect case study in workplace discrimination, abuse of power, and basic human cruelty. Rebecca, still holding her phone, realizes with growing horror that she has recorded her own career suicide in high definition. Mrs. Thompson, we can delete the video. No one else has to know this happened. We can make this go away. Laila looks at her with something approaching pity, like someone looking at a wounded animal. Delete it. Why would we delete it? This video is going to be very useful for training purposes. Laila walks to the security desk, where James stands, his relief visible as the truth finally comes to light like sunrise after the longest night. James? I want copies of all security footage from the past hour. Every angle, every moment, every word that was spoken. Yes, ma'am, James says immediately, his voice thick with emotion and vindication. Right away. It will be my absolute pleasure. Victoria finds her voice, desperation making it higher than normal, like a child pleading for mercy. Mrs. Thompson, please, I was just doing my job. I was protecting the building and everyone in it. I had no way of knowing who you were. Laila turns to face her fully, like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. That's exactly the problem, Victoria. You treated me terribly, not because you didn't know who I was, but because you thought it didn't matter who I was. You believed that my worth as a human being was determined by my clothes and my appearance, but I would never, if I had known, I would have treated you completely differently, Victoria stammers, grasping for anything that might save her. If you had known, you would have been respectful and professional. Laila finishes the thought with surgical precision. Which means you're perfectly capable of treating people well. You simply choose not to, when you think they can't fight back. Michael steps forward like an avenging angel in an expensive suit. Ms. Sterling, you have just demonstrated textbook discrimination, harassment, destruction of property, and abuse of authority. In front of dozens of witnesses and multiple recording devices, Rebecca tries one more desperate play, like a gambler betting her last chip. Mrs. Thompson, we were just being thorough about security. Security's important in today's world, and we couldn't take any chances with unknown individuals. Laila's laugh is sharp and without humor, like glass breaking in an empty room. Security? You destroyed my lunch and poured soda on it because you thought I was selling sandwiches illegally. What security threat did my homemade meal pose to a 30-story building full of adults? Victoria attempts to kneel, but Laila steps back like someone avoiding a snake. Don't you dare try to grovel your way out of this now. Stand up and face the consequences of your choices, like an adult. Please, Victoria whispers, her carefully applied makeup beginning to run as tears mix with mascara. I have a mortgage, student loans, credit cards. I need this job to survive. You should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate an innocent woman for sport, Laila replies with the coldness of winter wind. You should have considered the consequences before you chose cruelty over kindness. James, Laila continues, her voice carrying the authority she was born to wield. Please escort Ms. Sterling and Ms. Hayes to their offices to collect their personal belongings. Security will supervise to ensure nothing belonging to the company leaves with them. You're firing us? Rebecca shrieks, the sound echoing off the marble walls like a bird caught in a trap. I'm terminating your employment effective immediately, Laila corrects, with the precision of someone who understands the legal implications of every word. For cause, which means no severance pay, no positive references, and no unemployment benefits. Michael nods approvingly, like a second confirming a motion. I'll have HR prepare the termination paperwork immediately. Security will escort you out once you've collected your personal belongings. Victoria's composure completely crumbles. Years of carefully constructed professional facade collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. This isn't fair. I was doing my job. I was protecting the company from potential threats. You were abusing your position to bully someone you perceived as vulnerable, Laila counters with the finality of a judge delivering a sentence. That's not protection. That's predation. That's using whatever small power you had to hurt someone who couldn't defend themselves. Rebecca starts crying, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks like war paint in the rain. Mrs. Thompson, please. I was just following Miss Sterling's lead. I didn't know any better. I was just trying to do what I thought was right. Laila considers this, her expression softening slightly. You're right. You were following her lead, which shows poor judgment, but not malicious intent, which is why your termination will be noted as participated in harassment under direction of supervisor rather than initiated harassment. It's a small distinction, but it might matter to future employers who bother to check references. And my termination? Victoria asks, her voice barely a whisper, like wind through dead leaves. Gross misconduct, abuse of authority, harassment, destruction of property, and creating a hostile work environment, Laila lists with the precision of someone reading charges in a courtroom. Those will be the official reasons. The unofficial reason is that you reveal yourself to be the kind of person who hurts others when you think you can get away with it. Michael addresses the crowd that has been watching this drama unfold like spectators at a particularly intense sporting event. Let this be a lesson to everyone here. This company was built on principles of respect, dignity, and equal treatment, regardless of race, gender, economic status, or appearance. What happened here today was a violation of everything we stand for. Laila picks up one of the ruined sandwich containers, Coke still dripping from it like tears from a broken face. I made this at 5 this morning. I got up early because I wanted to surprise my husband with his favorite lunch. It took me an hour to prepare everything just the way he likes it, cut exactly the way he prefers, seasoned perfectly. She holds up the container for everyone to see, like evidence in a trial. This represents care, love, and effort. It represents the kind of small acts of kindness that make relationships work, that make life worth living. and you destroyed it because you enjoyed having power over someone you thought was powerless. Victoria and Rebecca stand in stunned silence as the full weight of their situation settles over them like a heavy blanket. James, Laila continues, her voice carrying warmth when she addresses the man who tried to protect her. Please make sure these two are escorted from the premises once they've collected their belongings. They are not to return to this building for any reason whatsoever. Yes, ma'am, James responds with obvious satisfaction. It will be my absolute pleasure to ensure they leave permanently. Laila looks at the crowd one final time, her gaze encompassing every face that watched her humiliation. I want everyone here to think carefully about what you witnessed today. Think about how quickly two people destroyed their careers because they couldn't treat another human being with basic decency and respect. As the crowd begins to disperse, murmuring among themselves like the audience leaving a powerful play, Laila stands in the center of the lobby, surrounded by the remnants of her destroyed lunch. The drama has ended, but the real lesson is just beginning to sink in for everyone who witnessed it. Michael, Laila says quietly, her voice returning to its natural gentleness now that justice has been served. I want to implement some changes based on what happened here today. Whatever you think is appropriate, he responds immediately, his respect for her evident in both his tone and his posture. The company will support any initiatives you believe are necessary. Laila addresses the remaining onlookers, her voice carrying easily through the marble space without needing to be raised. Today I learned something valuable about human nature. Not about how I was treated, which was unfortunate, but about how we treat others when we think they can't defend themselves. She pauses, looking at the faces around her, seeing everything from shame to admiration to curiosity. Every single day we interact with people we consider less important than ourselves. The delivery driver who brings our packages, the janitor who cleans our offices, the receptionist who greets us, the intern who fetches our coffee. How do we treat them when no one important is watching? How do we behave when we think there are no consequences? James steps forward, his weathered face showing deep emotion. Mrs. Thompson, if I may say so, you handled this situation with more grace and dignity than most people would have shown. You could have revealed who you were immediately and avoided all of this. Laila smiles at him, genuinely for the first time since entering the building. James, you tried to protect me even when it might have cost you your job. That takes real courage and character. That takes the kind of moral strength that can't be taught or bought. She turns to address the broader group, her voice taking on the quality of a teacher sharing an important lesson. I don't want anyone to feel guilty about witnessing this incident. Instead, I want you to remember it. Remember how quickly prejudice can turn into cruelty. Remember how easy it is to justify treating someone poorly when you think they don't matter, when you think they can't fight back. A young intern, probably fresh out of college, raises her hand tentatively. Mrs. Thompson, what should we do if we see this kind of thing happening again? Speak up, Laila says immediately, her voice carrying absolute conviction. Don't be a bystander. Don't stand there trying to reason with unreasonable people like I was forced to do. If you see someone being treated unfairly, say something, do something. Be better than the silent witness I was reduced to being today, Michael adds, his voice carrying the weight of policy change. Starting tomorrow, we'll be implementing mandatory bias training for all supervisory staff. This incident has shown us that we have serious work to do in terms of education and awareness. Laila nods approvingly. And we'll be establishing an anonymous reporting system for harassment and discrimination. No one should have to endure what happened to me today just because they don't have the protection of a title or position, or the right clothes or the right accent. She kneels down and begins collecting the scattered remains of her lunch, treating each piece with care despite its ruined state. This food represented something important to me. It was made with love, prepared with care, and intended to bring joy to someone I care about deeply. When Victoria destroyed it, she wasn't just making a mess on expensive marble. She was attacking the very idea that love and care matter in this world. Several people from the crowd come forward to help clean up, their faces showing shame and sympathy and a desire to somehow make amends for what they witnessed. "Thank you," Laila says to each person who helps, making eye contact, treating them like the valuable human beings they are. This is what community looks like. This is how we should treat each other every single day, regardless of circumstances. As the last pieces are collected and disposed of, Laila stands and looks around the lobby that has been transformed by the morning's events. "I'm going to go upstairs now and tell my husband about my morning. I'm going to explain how two people destroyed their careers because they couldn't see past their own prejudices and assumptions. And then I'm going to ask him to join me for lunch at the restaurant across the street, because the meal I brought him with such love has been ruined." She smiles, and for the first time since entering the building, it reaches her eyes and illuminates her entire face. "But tomorrow, I'll be back with another homemade lunch. And the day after that. And every day after that for as long as my husband works in this building. Because that's what love looks like. It's consistent, it's persistent, and it doesn't let bullies win." Laila walks toward the elevator, then stops and turns back to face the small crowd that remains, people who seem reluctant to leave, as if they want to hear the final words of a speech that has changed them. If you're watching a recording of this incident later, if this video finds its way to social media or the news, I want you to ask yourself something important. She pauses, making sure she has everyone's attention, her voice carrying the weight of someone who has learned a profound lesson. Have you ever treated someone poorly because you thought they couldn't fight back? Have you ever made assumptions about someone's worth based purely on their appearance? Have you ever used whatever small power you had to make someone else's day worse just because you could? Her voice carries clearly through the lobby, reaching every corner and every heart. Because if you have, today is your chance to change. Today is your chance to decide that you're going to be better than Victoria Sterling and Rebecca Hayes. Today is your chance to choose kindness over cruelty. Laila presses the elevator call button, the soft chime seeming louder than usual in the attentive silence. And if you're someone in a position of authority, if you're someone who has power over others, remember this. The way you treat people when you think it doesn't matter is the only way that actually matters. Character isn't what you do when everyone is watching. Character is what you do when you think no one will ever know. The elevator doors open with their familiar soft sound. "Oh, and one more thing," Laila says, stepping into the elevator but holding the door open with her hand. "Tomorrow I'm bringing lunch for James, too. He's the only person in this lobby who acted with dignity and courage today, and dignity deserves to be rewarded with homemade sandwiches." He looks directly into one of the phones still recording, speaking to an audience that extends far beyond this lobby. "Victoria, Rebecca, if you're watching this later, I hope you learn something from today. I hope you become better people because of this experience. But mostly I hope you remember that every person you meet is someone's beloved spouse, parent, child, or friend. And they all deserve better than what you showed me today." The elevator doors begin to close, but Laila holds them open for one final moment, one last lesson. And to everyone else watching, whether you're here in person or seeing this on a screen somewhere, the next time you see someone being treated unfairly, don't be a bystander. Be better. Be braver. Be the person who stands up instead of the person who watches silently and regrets it later. The doors close with finality, leaving the lobby in thoughtful silence as Laila ascends to the 30th floor to finally deliver the news of her morning to her husband, the man who built this empire, but who will be most concerned that someone hurt his wife's feelings over a sandwich made with love. The story ends not with revenge, but with the quiet satisfaction of justice served and lessons learned. proving that sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty is simply refusing to let it change who you are at your core.